this, this result, I think, hurts Dortmund. I mean, first of all, Stuttgart, fantastic to come back with a man down, right? They lose Mafropanos, a key defender, to a red card. Still managed to come back from a 2-0 deficit. Dortmund then scored. Gio Reyna makes it 3-2, I think in the 92nd or 93rd minute. And then somehow with the last shot of the game, Silas makes it 3-3 in the 97th minute. This is a massive point in the relegation battle, as we pointed out, for Stuttgart. For Dortmund, and we get to Bayern in a moment here because, they were just shaking their heads in disbelief on why they're still 2 points ahead of Dortmund. But for Dortmund, this is a huge slip up. And I think this is also one where it's almost more of a wake-up call for them than the Klassiker. Because you look at the post-game reactions, and Edin Terzic in the press conference, and I'm paraphrasing here, was quite strict with his team. I don't want to say he threw the team under the bus, but he kind of did. He did question his team's ability to perform. He did question his team's. He didn't use the M word, but it was in the room. You could sense it in the press conference. Mentality was something that was questioned without using the actual word. And I think you look at the reactions of all the different players on the field. This is such a big opportunity lost. And if Borussia Dortmund do not win the title at the end of the year, they will be looking at this game and say, this is probably an even bigger impact than the Bayern fixture. Because it feels like that Bayern are so vulnerable at the moment. And I said this, after the Klassiker and when we had Matt Ford on here, that I feel that there will be more Bayern wobbles coming. And I think there's more coming. We have lots to discuss when it comes to Bayern Munich and all the issues that are going on there. But if you're Borussia Dortmund, you need to capitalize.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first things first, Stuttgart were tremendous in this game.
Yeah.
Obviously, they went 2 goals down, and that's not great. But the way they responded was really quite remarkable. And even after going a man down, the way that they played in the second half was incredible in the sense that you never once thought that they were a team who were a man down, which really suggests to me that, and anyone who watched, that just about every player on that pitch put in like 110% to kind of compensate for the lack of a player. And we've kind of seen this in recent weeks with this team. They've got a new head coach. He's done a fantastic job there, and they're picking up points and results that suggest that they've maybe kind of turned a corner in a sense. They've also got that Nuremberg result, the Pokal, but then of course that Bochum win weekend before last, which was one that I think that kind of raised a few eyebrows actually. And they went into this game in the exact same kind of mood, to be perfectly honest with you, in the sense that they just didn't accept defeat at any stage of the game. And, it's interesting that Terzic has kind of, as you said, maybe thrown the team under the bus or been very critical of the club, because I do kind of feel like a lot of the pain and anguish that Dortmund went through in this game could be kind of chalked up to Terzic's kind of in-game management. I feel like to a large extent Dortmund were quite limited. So what the kind of necessary context for this game is that Nico Schlotterbeck and Niklas Süle were both injured. So they had to start with a kind of back four, and it was Mats Hummels and Emre Can as the two central defenders. And I actually thought Hummels actually had a really good first half. He was really good at kind of playing that sweeper role. And because Stuttgart had a number of chances in the first half alone. I mean, pretty sure, they had 0.49 XG at halftime. So they were definitely creating chances. For one reason or another, Hummels goes off. He gets told he was ill. So he was thrown up or something in the changing room. And the club then bring on young Koulibaly, and it just kind of went downhill from there.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, people who watch the highlights of this game will see Koulibaly kind of swiping it thin air, much like Kobel did against Bayern in the lead up to that third goal. But I actually think, having watched the game, that over the course of the match, Emre Can, as a central defender, was just making one mistake after another mistake. He was constantly being caught out. He was constantly missing his players. He was losing his mark, the players he was supposed to mark, over and over again. And actually, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's either Stuttgart's first or second goal, he actually knocks it into the back of the net where, it takes the ball there. I can't remember if it was Koulibaly, the Stuttgart Koulibaly is, took a shot and then, it headed towards Emre Can. Can sticks a foot out, up kind of taking a touch on and it takes away from Cavell, who was already diving the right way. And I feel like him and Koulibaly in defence was just a recipe for disaster. And Stuttgart, over and over and over again, just found ways to break through both of them. And I do kind of feel like there was a way that Dortmund, or Terzic in particular, could have avoided this. He had Marius Wolf on the bench, could have maybe moved Rierson in as a sort of, central defender. I know that's not ideal, obviously Rierson's a fullback, but you kind of have to look at this fact that Koulibaly is obviously extremely inexperienced. If I'm not mistaken, was this his debut? I think
it was his debut. Yeah, it was his debut.
And to come on in a game like this where Stuttgart are just throwing everything at you, alongside a player who is not only not a defender, but has already shown countless times that he kind of struggles to show that composure and the kind of level-headedness to kind of see out matches. Yeah. And it just meant like Dortmund's foundation just completely crumbled. And like I feel really bad for Koulibaly because he obviously makes the mistake that leads to the third goal. But by that point, Dortmund were already on the ropes because they just didn't have a defence that could have held up to any kind of pressure. Yeah. And another thing as well that I think is maybe worth bringing up here as well and again, this kind of goes back to the way this team is trained or the way that this team is kind of, is just looked after. And that is that Dortmund looked fantastic in the first half in the sense of going forwards. Daniel Malen was really good. I thought Julian Brandt was very sharp. Adeyemi was very sharp. Sebastian Haller was quite good. But in the second half, all these players began to just kind of drop off. Daniel Malen had probably the best 45 minutes of his season, or perhaps even of his Dortmund career in this game. And then the second half, he looked exhausted. Julian Brandt looked exhausted. Adeyemi exhausted. We've talked a lot about the way that Sebastian Haller's going to struggle to finish games recently. And I don't know. I just kind of feel like maybe I'm just a bit old-fashioned, but I feel like these players should be able to last 90 minutes. And I don't know. It just kind of felt like a very kind of weird thing that Dortmund's entire front line couldn't last 90 minutes of high-intensity football. And so then obviously Royce comes on, Mukuku comes on, Bayern Gittins comes on, Gio Reyna. And, I know these guys obviously created some chances, Reyna got the goal, but to completely, to not only have to play this extremely ropey makeshift defence in the middle of the game, but also to feel a need to completely change your attacking lineup, which was doing quite well in the first half. I think that just did so much to kind of completely destroy any sort of momentum or any kind of control that Dortmund had over this game. And I do feel like this is something we keep coming back to with Terzic.
Yeah.
He is very, very good in certain aspects of coaching. There's no doubt that the players buy into what he's offering. There's no doubt that they do run through brick walls for him. He's managed to get a lot of the kind of players in this team who didn't perform under previous head coaches to perform for him. Daniel Malen's a perfect example of that. But Terzic, I think, has shown time and time again, specifically this season, that his in-game management is really lacking. And I thought this game was a perfect example of
that. Yeah, no, totally. I think the Koulibaly thing was like a big story, right? Like that he came on and then kind of gave away that goal. But I like a big aspect of it too. I think when you look at that goal, watch what Marco Reus and Gio Reyna are doing. I followed this on Twitter live, and then I watched the game and the highlights back. And one of the things that kind of stuck out to me is that they both just stop at the halfway line and don't really engage or like run back and do the work that is required in a situation like that. And I think with Marco Reus, with Gio Reyna, I mean, this is a well-known fact now, right? Like we all know who he is as a person, and we all know that it comes with all these problems. And he is a very good player. He's a very good prospect, but he's also a little bit of he always has a bit of a personality that doesn't always is 100% work ethic. With Reus, though, he's the captain of this team. And we're in the middle of contract negotiations at the moment, and there was a article today that actually suggested that this game might further impact the way Dortmund are considering his future, right? So I think that is a really interesting aspect here. Is like, how are Dortmund going to approach this going forward with Marco Reus? And what is the impact of this game? What happens if Dortmund don't win the title because of this result? Is, I guess, what I'm going to say. Are they going to say we have to really change things over?
Absolutely, and I think another thing is, and it just goes some way to kind of point it out that, you know, this kind of this Dortmund team just really lack any kind of experienced heads that can kind of see them through these games. Maybe Matsumo's could have been that in the second half if he'd stuck around, but you look around that team, and this has always been my kind of issue with Royce as a kind of captain, and maybe this is just a problem with always having attacking players as a captain, is they don't really have the kind of defensive kind of mindset to be a kind of consistent or a kind of level-headed player in these kind of moments. Royce always wants to counter-attack. He always wants to run up the ball. He wants to dribble the ball. He always wants to score more goals. And in a game like this, that's not what you want. You want a player who's going to happily sit back, they'll track the runners, and they'll get stuck in. And I think another really telling thing for that third goal is that Jude Bellingham kind of I actually did take a screenshot of this, and I was going to tweet it out, but I just didn't bother because I felt like it was already past the point. But when as Stuttgart passed the ball out of defence for the move that leads to the third goal, Jude Bellingham, who's only one of two central midfielders in this team, is closing down the left back. And, you know, Özcan's kind of left in the middle of the pitch on his own. I think Bayern Gittins by that point to be beside him. And it's just little things like that. I think that really made me think, oh, that's the degree of inexperience that Royce has kind of shown himself up for there, because I feel like a more experienced central midfielder would have probably been standing square between the central defenders at that point, saying, you know, I'm going to put my body in the line for whatever comes up here in the next 30 or 60 seconds. And it was a deeply frustrating game for Dortmund fans, there's no doubt about it. And, you know, I guess we're just going to have to wait and see how it leads to, or what it leads to, because obviously, you know, as we're about to mention in the moment, Bayern kind of maybe did them a favour in struggling to win their own game